Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. Let's begin. Wait just a minute. Right. Okay. Today is derived texts 218 to 238, both inclusive of quotes. Okay. ब्रह्मणो हि प्रतिष्ठाहम् अमृतस्य अव्ययस्य च शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्य सुखस्य एकान्तिकस्य च इति. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal and imperishable. I am also the basis of the soul's eternal constitutional duty and its ultimate happiness. This is Bhagavad Gita. Nanu Vasudevasya tava bhaktiya katham tadrishyasya. How can devotion to the son of Vasudeva lead to the state of equality with Brahman? This is possible because Krishna is the foundation and ultimate shelter of the eternally perfect Brahman. Moreover, Krishna is the source of the soul's eternal occupation, Bhakti Yoga. So the soul's eternal constitutional duty is Bhakti Yoga. And of the most sublime happiness of serving him in pure love. So that his ultimate happiness refers to the ultimate happiness of pure love for Krishna. Yeah, dharmasya, shravanadibhakti yogasya, tatha aikantikasya, sukhasya, prema lakshanasya, aham pratishtha. Krishna indicates that he is the foundation for love for him. Iti mad bhaktiya brahmanas tatrasya praptir na chitra iti. So it's not astonishing that he is that one can attain Brahman realization or Brahman happiness simply by engaging in devotional service unto him. Atra karikaha sa brahma bhavam sadhya leela vigraham ashrayam mam ananta ghanam premna bhaje dityayam anshayah. Here Krishna's idea is as follows. After attaining the nature of Brahman, a person should take shelter of my personal pastime form, the reservoir of all ecstasy, and worship me with pure love. So these two verses from Bhagavad Gita, Mamcha Yogya Vichareha and Brahmanahi Pratishtaham, have been explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in the form of two verses of his own composition. On the strength of having practiced Bhakti Yoga without deviation, a devotee of the Supreme Lord attains the pure nature of Brahman existence. Then, situated in transcendence, the devotee can proceed to take shelter of Krishna in his Leela Vigraha. One thus progresses from the level of Brahman to pure love of God. Bhakterabhya vicharaya prema sevaiva yat phalam kevalam brahma bhavastu vidveshe napi labhyate. The fruit of undeviating bhakti is an elevation to service in pure love. On the other hand, one can obtain mere Brahman realization even by hating the Lord. But when the particle of pure spirit merges back into the totality of spirit, isn't that his ultimate perfection? How can the soul emerge out of that happy perfection to again engage in an external activity like serving Krishna? This doubt arises from the failure to accept the superiority of Krishna Bhakti over the mukti of merging into Brahman, which even enemies killed by Krishna obtain. There's an important point here which, at least in my experience, a number of devotees are unable to grasp. They think that there are a number of devotees who think that these impersonalists are actually good people. And they point out that there are two types of impersonalists. There are impersonalists who, of course, both types of impersonalists want to attain Brahman realization alone. But they point out that one type of impersonalist, there is one type of impersonalism in which you do not accept that Bhagavan is Sachidananda, absolutely Sachidananda, as fully transcendental as Brahman. There's another who accept that Brahman and Bhagavan both are fully transcendental. And they point out that the first group, they don't even attain this Brahman realization. They don't attain this at all. They only go to hell because they consider Krishna and Krishna's plenary expansions, the Vaikuntha world, devotion service, everything to be Maya, Mithya, Maya. They consider all variety to be somehow material. And they think this unvariegated Brahman alone is spiritual. So the first group goes to hell. Vishnu Chakra Thakur explicitly states that the second group, they attain this Brahman realization. They accept that Brahman and Bhagavan, both of them are fully spiritual. They do not think that Bhagavan is material. They accept that. So there is a view that is floating around that they're actually good people. But they're not good people. Because if they were good people, how would they attain the goal of those who try to kill Krishna? Why would Krishna give them the goal that he gives, the destination that he gives to those who try to kill him? So Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Devotion that no, these people they're also enemies. They're also Krishna's enemies because they have the same attitude of hostility. They still don't want to accept that they are eternal servants of Krishna and serve Krishna in his Bhagavan form, in spiritual variety. Jivet Swarupam Krishna Nitya Das. So therefore, they are not given the happiness of Prema Bhakti, rather they are just given this impersonal Brahman realization in its ultimate feature, of course, after one gives up the gross body and subtle body. But it should be noted that these people are not, they are not great people. Just as a person who steals money and enjoys it all by himself, you may say he's better than a murderer, but he's still a thief. Therefore, Prabhupada says that we should keep away from impersonalists of both types, actually. When Prabhupada says we should keep away from impersonalists, we should keep away from both types of impersonalists, the first type and the second type. Bhakti Yoga gives far greater benefits than mere merging into the impersonal existence of Brahman. According to Brahmanda Purana, Siddhalokastu tamasah pare yatra pasantihi siddha brahma sukhye magna daityascha harena hata. Siddhaloka lies beyond material darkness. Accomplished mystics live there, absorbed in the bliss of the Supreme, and demons killed by Lord Hari also reside there. Siddhaloka, also called Brahmaloka, is a place where one experiences the formless mass of spiritual radiance called Brahmajyoti. It is beyond the realm of darkness, outside the eighth covering shell of the universe, the shell of Prakriti. Although this Brahmajyoti is nothing but the effulgence of the Supreme Person's transcendental form, those who don't know this think that it's just formless light. as in the example of Narada looking like a mass of light from a distance. So this is from that drama, the quotation from that drama, that when Narada Muni appeared, initially people saw him just to be light, and then they gradually began to see some variety within that light, and then they began to see his bodily features much more prominent and visible, and then they saw him, and then they recognized he is Narada Muni. So it's like that. Sincere seekers of the truth who meditate on this impersonal Brahman but who do not know of the nectar found at the Supreme Lord's feet find relief from all material designations, gaining residence in the Brahma Jyoti. Demons killed by Sri Krishna are also given this favor. Those who disrespect the Lord's feet, however, lose every trace of knowledge they have and fall again into darkness. The demigods who prayed to Krishna while he stayed in Devaki's womb maintained, Yener Vindaksha Vimukta Maninas, Tvayastha Bhavada Vishuddha Buddhaya, Aruhya Krishrena Param Padam Tatah, Padantyadho Namtrita Yushmadante. O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. I must add that Prabhupada has given an additional meaning, additional import, additional purport to this Bhagavata verse from the 10th canto. And he maintains that all impersonalists, this applies to all impersonalists, it doesn't apply only to those impersonalists who consider Bhagavan to be Maya, to be a product of Maya. Applies to all types of impersonalists, because even the ones who do accept that Bhagavan is as spiritual as Brahman, Savishesha Bhagavan to be as spiritual as Nirvishesha Brahman, the variegated Bhagavan to be as spiritual as the non-variegated Brahman, still they do not fully submit unto the Supreme Lord, because submission unto the Supreme Lord in reality starts from Dasya Rasa in Prema Bhakti, and they do not want that. So they certainly have an aversion to the Supreme Lord. And ultimate liberation we learn from Srimad Bhagavatam is Muktir Hitvanyatha Rupam Swarupena Vyavasthiti. Actual liberation is to be situated in one's own constitutional position. And one's constitutional position is nothing other than to serve Lord Hari. Dasabhuta Hare Reva Nanya Seva Kadachana. Jiver Swarupai Krishna Nitya Das. We learn from Bhagavad Purana, and Lord Chaitanya clarified that the position of each and every living entity is to engage in devotion service unto Lord Hari's lotus feet. We are Krishna's servants, and we are only meant to serve Krishna. We have no duty other than that. So they are averse to this. So even though they may successfully get out of material existence and experience Brahman happiness, Brahma Sukha, they are not actually fully liberated. Because full liberation means that you are back in your original constitutional function of eternally serving Krishna. So they are also referred to by this Vimukta Mahaninas. And their conception is certainly contaminated. Avishuddha Buddhaya. It is not fully pure. It is not Vishuddha Buddhaya. It is not immaculate. There's still something left. So it is not surprising that they won't be satisfied in their position, because their position is that they have given up, they have gotten out of the imprisonment of Mahamaya, but they didn't come back to their own position. They didn't reach their own position. The followers of Ramanujacharya, they say that there are actually souls who are liberated in the spiritual world. There are souls who are bound in samsara, material existence, wherein they simply reincarnate again. And then there are souls in between, were neither here nor there. And they describe that the souls in between are like ghosts. You cannot say that they are fully, because they're not back. They're not back in their eternal, everlasting, unmotivated service to the Supreme Lord. Nanu te yadavasyasya bhajana brahmata katham ityaha brahmano hi yatoham purastava sthito yam vividhananda purnachit ghanavigraha brahmanaschit swarupasya pratishtha paramashraya ravistejo ghanakara karaughasya yatha bhavet. But how can one achieve Brahman realization just by worshipping this chief of the Yadavas? Krishna answers, because I who stand before you am the basis of Brahman, fully embodying all the manifold varieties of ecstasy. I am the foundation and ultimate shelter of Brahman's pure spiritual identity. Just as the sun, embodying concentrated light, is a source of a multitude of rays. Hearing Sri Krishna's statement about liberation and devotion, Arjuna might question him, how can anyone become one with the Supreme by worshipping you? Playing devil's advocate, Arjuna might insinuate that Krishna, having taken birth in Devaki's womb, is just a human being. Like any other fortunate son of a royal family, he is enjoying the results of his past good karma. Krishna unequivocally refutes this idea in the second of the two verses just cited, where he explains that he causes and maintains impersonal Brahman. He is the source of the impersonal Brahman. When Krishna takes birth from Devaki by his sweet will, the unchanging absolute appears from a pure devotee, herself qualitatively one with the absolute. As Sri Vishnu Purana says, Tvam para prakriti sukshma, you Devaki, are of the sublime spiritual nature. Devakyam Devarupinyam. Bhagavatam also says that her form, Devaki's form, was just like the Lord's, spiritual. The birth of Krishna, the unchanging absolute, is thus likened to the sun's appearing from the eastern horizon. Krishna says about himself, Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishuropi san prakritim swam adhishthaya sambhavamyatma mayaya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, by my internal energy, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. The Supreme Lord does not take a new body as a king's son might, having lost all his learning and other assets from his previous life. Krishna is eternal and unchanging, and therefore by worshipping him, one can at least achieve his impersonal aspect. This is no more surprising than it would be for a space vehicle approaching the sun to come in contact with its effulgence. Nakalu Suryam Gakshatas Tat Prabhasa Praveshu Durghataha. It is not impossible for a person who is going towards the sun to not enter into the effulgence of the sun. Avyayena Amriteneha Nityam Muktir Rudiryate Shashvatena tu Dharmena Bhagavad Dharma Uchyate. In Bhagavad Gita 14.27, Krishna uses the words imperishable and immortal to indicate the eternally liberated condition of Brahman. Eternal constitutional duty points to the principles of service to the personality of Godhead. Aikantika Sukhenatra Prema Bhakti Rasotsava Yena Moksha Swatasyapi Tiraskaru Vidhiyate. By ultimate happiness, Krishna indicates a celebration of blissful exchanges and loving devotional service. The bliss of these exchanges eclipses even the happiness of liberation. In fact, Jiva Goswami has noted in his Bhagavad Sandarbha that just as a person who attains impersonal liberation, he spits at the thought of material enjoyment, even if we take into consideration the happiness of Lord Brahma, which is the highest position in material existence. Like that, a person who has attained Krishna Prema Bhakti, he spits at the thought of impersonal, the happiness of impersonal liberation. They don't consider this to be a great achievement. In Cha Brahma Samhitayam, Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti Koti Shvashe Vasudhari Bhuti Bhinnam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Furthermore, the Brahma Samhita says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets with their different opulences and millions of universes. Narakrite Sandra Chaitanya Rashe Krishnasya Nirakarash Chaitanya Rashi Prabhastaniya Brahma Prakasha Vena Uchyate Yat Pramanam Vachanikam Aha Yasya Prabhetyadi. He has stated that Krishna, who has a form like a human being, is the concentrated form of consciousness, and that the formless mass of consciousness is comparable to effulgence. And that is being compared to the effulgence of the Nirvishesha Brahman, impersonal Brahman, unvariegated Brahman. Now he presents explicit evidence to this effect. Atra Karike, 2 verses explaining this Brahma Samhita verse. Nishkaladi Swarupam Tad Brahmandandar Bhuta Kotishu Vibhuti Vir Dharai Vibhuti Vir Dharadya Vir Bhinnam Bhedam Upagatam Sada Prabhava Yuktasya Brahma Yasya Prabha Bhave Tam Govindam Bhajami Iti Padyasya Sputi Kritaha. Karika is explaining this. That which is characterized as essentially without parts, and so on, becomes differentiated into varieties of opulent expansions, like earthly planets, in millions and billions of universes. I worship Govinda, always endowed with great power, of whom Brahman is the effulgence. Such is the essential meaning of the words. The divine light of the Brahmajyoti is properly described as the amorphous radiance of Shri Krishna's human-like body, which is the concentrated source of all light. Brahman is conceived as formless, but it becomes differentiated with infinite varieties of form in countless universes. As the cause, it is one, but its effects are unlimitedly many. Someone may raise this doubt, but we hear from Shruti that the Supreme Lord himself, not as effulgence, created the universe. The Taittiriya Upanishad thus states, So kamayata bahusyam, he desired, let me become many. According to Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, the verses of the Brahma Samhita resolve this doubt by indicating that the Supreme Lord's effulgence serves as his creative agent. The Brahmajyoti agitates dormant Prakriti, who then gives birth to the material universes. Idrisham Brahma, what is the nature of that Brahma? Jagadanda Koti Koti Shvasankhyaateshu Jagadandeshu Vasudhadi Vir Vibhuti Vir Bhinnam Karanatmana Ekam Tat Karyatmana Sankhyatam Ityartha. So this Brahman that Brahma Samhita is talking about is the cause of the universe. Prabhoho Prabha Eva Karya Nishpadika. The effulgence of the Lord itself brings about these effects of the unlimited universes. Vikshaya Taduttirati Tatrabhaya Eva Kshuddha Prakriti Jagat Andani Asuta. When Prakriti, material nature, is agitated by this effulgence of the Lord, then she gives birth to these material universe, the Brahmandas. Kevaladvaiti bhir yad Brahma Swarupam nirniyate tadatra na vimatam. The Kevaladvaita, the Kevaladvaitis, Kevaladvaita is the philosophy of Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. Kevaladvaiti refers to followers of Adi Shankaracharya who propound radical impersonalism, radical monism, Kevaladvaita, exclusive monism, to make it even more exclusive non-dualism, to make it more clear. That is the official name of that philosophy, Kevaladvaita. So those who adhere to Kevaladvaita, they have their conception of Brahman, the ultimate Brahman. But that is not what is described in the Brahma Samhita. This is another important thing to note. We should not, again, this is another mistake that some of us might be making by thinking that the impersonal Brahman of Adi Shankaracharya is the effulgence of Krishna. It is not actually that. The impersonal effulgence of Krishna has been described in the scriptures. It's the cause of the universes, whereas Shankaracharya's impersonal Brahman is not the cause of the universe, actually. Tadhi nirdharmakam shabda avachyam advitiyam cha idam tu vishuddhatva prakashamayatwadi dharmayam shastravachyam jagat karanatva sadvitiyam cha iti mahadantaram. There is a very great difference between these two. The Kevaladvaitavadi's version of Brahman is altogether untenable, with no support from any reliable means. Okay, no, here. The Kevaladvaitavadi's concept of Brahman as devoid of qualities, inexpressible in words, and one without a second is incompatible with Brahma Samhita's description, which is altogether different from this conception. First of all, Brahman, we are talking of the impersonal Brahman, which is the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, has qualities, since it is a radiant emanation of the Supreme Person. Secondly, it is expressible, since the Vedic scriptures describe it elaborately. And thirdly, it has a second, since the material creation arises from it. The Kevaladvaitavadi's version of Brahman is altogether untenable, with no support from any reliable means of acquiring knowledge. Empirical knowledge from the senses do not help in knowing that Brahman, which has no form or qualities to sense. Logic cannot discover it because it has no characteristics to serve as elements of premises. Verbal testimony of authority cannot prove this version of Brahman because, as inexpressible truth, it belongs to no categories and has no name. Metaphorical descriptions, Lakshana, cannot comprehend it because words cannot designate it and so cannot refer to it even indirectly. Nor can this Kevaladvaita version of Brahman be the cause of universal creation because it lacks will, which must be exercised before any act of creation. Nor can it be the subject of spiritual instruction, since in this impersonal view of existence, there is no real person to instruct, no real person to be instructed, and no real instructions to give. Kevaladvaitavadis say, all these apparent phenomena arise from delusion, but this is also not feasible. Whose delusion would this be? Brahman's or the individual souls? Neither case is possible. Perfect Brahman cannot become deluded, nor can the Jiva be deluded because there was no Jiva before the delusion started. Thus, without much reflection, one can understand the flimsiness of the Kevaladvaita theory of Brahman. That is straight a refutation of Mayavada, which is baseless. It's another one of his nonsensical ideas, which had to be propagated, because the Supreme Lord wanted the demoniac people to be misguided, and therefore he ordered Lord Shiva to preach it. That's all. Otherwise, it has no relevance. Nano bhos tava bhavoyam yata eva maya dhruvam paravyama pate shaurir ravataras tvayochyate. But, dear friend, someone else may say, I do understand the idea behind what you say. You mean that Krishna is an incarnation of the Lord of the spiritual sky. Asa Sri Vaishnava pratyavat tishtante. Now the Sri Vaishnavas, they attack. This Puru Paksha is put forward by the Sri Vaishnavas, followers of the Sampradaya established by Goddess Lakshmi, and directed in the modern age by the teachings of Acharya Ramanujan. In their opinion, the Supreme Soul assumes 5 kinds of forms: Para, Vyuha, Vibhava, Antaryami, and Archa. The Para is the original personality of Lord Narayana. His view consists of his four expansions, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. His Vibhava forms are Matsya, Kurma, and his other avatars. The Antaryami is a super soul in every living being's heart, assuming the size of the living being's thumb. And his Archa is the deity who appears for his devotees worship like Sri Ranganath and Jagannath. In the Sri Vaishnava's view, the personal forms of all the Vibhavas are eternal, but three of them are superior: Nrsimha, Raghunath, and Krishna. Among the three, Krishna displays the opulences of God most completely, placing him right after Lord Narayana in the rank of importance. This Purva Paksha will continue up to text 299. We are in 226. We have plenty of verses. Plenty of verses. The Sri Vaishnava spokesman begins by acknowledging the claim regarding Krishna's supremacy and proceeds to interpret it according to his own understanding. Okay, that is, yeah, it is faithfully brought out from Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushan. Nano, Matsya Kurmadir Riva, Krishna Astu Avatara, Richet Naivam Vityaha Janmaditi. But can't we say that Krishna is an incarnation just like Matsya, Kurma, and so on? No. Janmad Leela Prakatyad Avatarat Tayapyaso Prokto Vilasa Evasyad Sarvot Karshadi Bhumataha. Krishna is generally called an avatar because he displays pastimes of birth and so on. But actually, he is a direct expansion of Narayana, fully possessing all supreme excellences. Krishna is Narayana's expansion. Is he just like Lord Matsya and Lord Kurma? No, says the Sri Vaishnava. Although Krishna can be called an avatar because he performs the pastime of taking birth and does other things avatars do, factually he is Narayana himself. I remember meeting one Ramanaja follower in Melkote, Karnataka, with a few other devotees. And this Sri Vaishnava, while talking about Krishna, he said, I cannot even call Krishna an incarnation. He is practically Narayana himself. Narayana himself has become Krishna. It's not just an incarnation. Narayana himself has become Krishna. So that is, that's exactly what they say. Although he does not exhibit some of Narayana's unique excellences, he is greater than even Lord Nrsimha and Lord Ramachandra. Yah Paravyomanachasya Asamanordha Vaibhavaha Shruti Smriti Mahatantra Varnito Karsha Saushtava Lokas Srishti Pura Brahme Kalpe Yah Parameshtine Mahavaikuntha Lokastham Swamatmanam Adarshayat. That Lord of the spiritual sky has unequaled and unsurpassed opulences and unrivaled supremacy, as described by the Shrutis, Smritis, and major mantras. During the Brahma Kalpa, before the creation of the worlds, he showed himself and his supreme world, Vaikuntha, to Brahma. Tatha hi, Sri Dvitiya Skandhe, Tasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Sabha Jitaha, Sandarshayamasa Paramnaya Param, Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Satvasam, Swadrishta Vadbhih Purushair Abhishtutam. This incident is described in the second canto. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to reveal his personal abode Vaikuntha, the supreme region above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is free from all kinds of misery, illusion, and fear, and is adored by all self-realized persons. So now this is coming from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The commentary is straight coming from Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushan Prabhu. This verse and the subsequent 5 appear as verses 9 to 17 of chapter 9 of the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. At the beginning of his life, before the creation, Brahma had no clue how to create the universe. At that time, he heard a voice articulate the two syllables, Tapa, which he understood as guidance to practice serious spiritual discipline to gain the intelligence he needed for his work of creation. After he meditated carefully for 1000 celestial years, Lord Narayana showed his pleasure by allowing Brahma a vision of his personal abode, Vaikuntha. Nayat Param, there is no higher world than Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God. In that place, there are no miseries such as those caused by ignorance, egoism, attachment, hatred, and addictive obsessions. The residents of Vaikuntha never fail in correct discrimination and have no fear of ever having to leave. It is populated by the exalted, self-realized persons who are its worshippers. Pravartate yatra rajastamastayo sattvamcha mishram nachakala vikrama nayatra maya kim muta pare hare anuvrata yatra sura chita. In the spiritual world, there is neither the mode of passion nor the mode of ignorance, nor any admixture of the two, nor is there adulterated goodness, the influence of time, or Maya herself. What to speak of others? Only the pure devotees of the Lord who are worshipped by both demigods and demons reside in the spiritual world as the Lord's associates. Rajastamascha tayo sahacharam mishram sattvam cha yatra loke alavigamascha napravate nasti yatra mayeva nasti. In that abode, there is no rajoguna, no tamoguna, and the sattva that accompanies rajoguna and tamoguna. There is time is not victorious over that place. It simply does not exist. Maya does not exist. And the Karyabhuta Mahad Ahankararayascha Santiti Kimudavakta, you want to speak of Mahatattva, Ahankar, false ego, and various elements of material existence, which are just effects of Maya. In Vaikuntha, the modes of matter are absent, including goodness, which is always mixed with passion and ignorance. There is also no influence of time and no illusion created by Maya. Certainly, therefore, the elements that expanded from Maya, the Mahat means Mahatattva, false ego, and so on, are also absent. Without time and illusion, the Vaikuntha world is perpetually illuminated by perfect bliss, and all its inhabitants are auspicious, cultured, and gentle. Shyama Vadata Shatapatra Lochana Pishundavastra Surucha Supeshasa Sarve Chaturba Havaun Mishan Mani Praveka Nishka Varana Suvarchasa Pravala Vaidurya Mrinala Varchasa Parispurat Kundalam Mauli Malina. Inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets have radiant sky blue complexions, and their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is a yellowish color, and their bodily features are very attractive. Just the age of growing youths. They are effulgent, endowed with 4 hands, and nicely decorated with pearl-studded ornamental medallions. They wear earrings, headdresses, and garlands. Some Vaikuntha residents have effulgent complexions, resembling coral, Vaidurya, and celestial lotuses. Supeshasaha means endowed with the gentleness of youth. Manipraveka means the best of jewels which the Vaikuntha Vasis wear mounted on medallions, nishkas, that adorn their chests and on other ornaments. Each of those who worship a form of Lord Narayana that has a complexion other than blue has a body of the same color as the Lord, as the form he worships. Bhrajishnubhiryah parito virajate lasadvimana valibhir mahatmanam Virochamana Amado Tamadhyubhi Savidyadabha Valibhir Yathanabha. The Vaikuntha sky is filled with various airplanes, all glowing brilliantly. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas, devotees of the Lord. Their consorts are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions. Thus, Vaikuntha appears like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. In this analogy, the sky represents the blue saris worn by many of the Vaikuntha women. The Mahatmas are those who reside in those Vaikuntha worlds. Neela Sati Vishishtatvam Yotyate. So they wear blue saris. No, it's not that sari which is invented in India. It's the Vaikuntha dress. Spiritual. Or in this original form. Shri Yatra Rupin Nyurugaya Padayo Karontimanam Bahuda Vibhuti Renkashitaya Kusuma Karanu Gair Vigiyamana Priyakarma Gayati. There the goddess of fortune in her transcendental form engages in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, pleasing him with her potent expansions. As she sits on a swing, glorified by personified spring and his followers, she sings of her beloved Lord's glorious deeds. Sri Lakshmi's expanded opulences tempt her as maidservants and paraphernalia. Yet with all the powers of control and enjoyment at her disposal, she constantly attends to the service of her husband. She could be enjoying herself. She doesn't do that. She's more interested in serving the Supreme Lord, her most beloved husband. Dadarsha tatra akila sakpatam patim shriyah patim yajya patim jagat patim sunandananda prabalahanadibhi swapashadanyai parishevitam vibhum. Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe. He was being served by the foremost servitors like Nanda, Sunanda, Prabala, and Arhana, his immediate associates. In the course of his tour of the amazing Vaikuntha world, Brahma eventually entered the presence of Vaikuntha's master, the Lord of the Sattvatas. The Supreme Lord is called Sat, the reservoir of pleasure, and his devotees are called Sattvatas, those who possess this reservoir of pleasure. Bhritya prasadabhimukham drigasavam prasannahasa arunalochananam kiritinam kundalinam chaturbhujam pitam shukam vakshasi lakshitam shriya. The personality of Godhead, intoxicating and attractive to behold, leaned favorably toward his loving servitors, appearing very satisfied. His smiling face was beautified by his enchanting and red-tinged eyes. He was dressed in a yellow garment and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. He had 4 hands, and his chest bore the mark of the goddess of fortune. The Lord's beauty delivers nectar to the eyes, and goddess Shri resides on his chest in the form of a golden lion. Dragasavam, Saundaryena Netron Madhakam. He intoxicates the eyes with his beauty. Adhyarhaniya sanamastitum param vritam chatushodasha pancha shaktibhi yuktam bhagai svai ritaratra chathruvai swa eva dhaman ramamanamishwaramiti. Enjoying his own abode, the Lord sat on his greatly worshipable throne, surrounded by his personified energies like the 4, the 16, and the 5, and also present, whereas natural opulences, which when seen in others are inferior and temporary. Lord Narayana's 4 energies are named Kladini, Kirti, Karuna, and Tushti. The 16 energies mentioned also in text 129 of this chapter are Shri, Bhu, Kirti, Ila, Leela, Kanti, Vidya, Vimala, Utkarshini, Dhyana, Ya, Yoga, Prithvi, Satya, Ishana, and Anugraha. And his five energies are Sankhya, Yoga, Vairagya, Tapas, and Bhakti. These potencies surrounded Narayana's throne. The special opulences of the Supreme Lord are Dharma, Jnana, Ishwarya, and Vairagya. Only he possesses these in full. The portions of Lord Narayana's energies found in Brahma, other demigods, and ordinary mortals are impermanent reflections of the originals. Attakarika, some verses that provide explanation. Yad yatah param utkrishtam padam manyanna hi kvachit sanklesha pancha vidyadya vimoho nirvivekata sadhvasam patato bhitir न संकेतानि यत्र तम स्वदृष्टम आत्मनः साक्षात्कारस्तद्वद्भिरीडितम्. Karika is explaining these verses. There is no place superior to this abode. Here, there are no miseries caused by the five kinds of ignorance and so on. There is no illusion that may cause failure of discrimination. And there is no fear of having to leave. This place is worshipped by persons who have achieved direct realization of their own selves. So this is in fact the traditional method of coming to Bhakti Yoga. The Swanishtas they engage in full-fledged Bhakti Yoga only after self-realization. Even the Parinishtitas, they say that before you try to engage in full-fledged Bhakti Yoga, you must become self-realized first. You must realize that you're not the body. This is not just on the intellectual platform. You must spiritually experience it. You must come to that point where the Supreme Lord grants you that self-realization. After that, you can think about God realization, for which you're required to engage in full-fledged Bhakti Yoga. Prior to that, of course, you must engage in Bhakti Yoga, but not full-fledged Bhakti Yoga. Full-fledged Bhakti Yoga is only after you're self-realized. So, this is, of course, the gradual method of spiritual progress. The Swanishtas, they take several lifetimes, and the Parinishtitas take one full lifetime. In both of these systems, in both of these pathways, you need to follow that method. The five causes of misery were listed by Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan as comment to text 229. Rajastamascha nayo yatra sattvam sadhya tayor nacha guna yatra prakriti jana santi iti pradarshitam nakala vikramo yatra sarva vidvamsa karita param moolam anarthanam yatra mayaiva nastihi apare tatra kimmutta vikara bhadadayah ato vaikuntha lokasya khatita nitya siddhata. In that abode, there is no manifestation of the modes born from material nature, passion, ignorance, or goodness mixed with the other two. There is no influence of time causing the destruction of all things. Nor is there Maya, the root of everything inferior. Then what to speak of a transformation such as the Mahatattva? Thus the world of Vaikuntha is described as eternally existent. Saying that in Vaikuntha there is no mixed sattva implies that spiritual substance is pure goodness. As Lord Indra said in his prayers to Sri Krishna, Vishuddha sattvam tavadhama shantam tapomayam dvasta rajastamaskam. Your transcendental form, a manifestation of pure goodness, is undisturbed by change, shining with knowledge and devoid of passion and ignorance. The Vishuddha sattva of Vaikuntha cannot be a type of matter. Otherwise, Shukadeva Goswami would not specifically say, Nayatra Maya, there is no material nature in Vaikuntha. Srila Jiva Goswami also brings up another point of observation. In material existence, the three modes of material nature are always present with the others. You don't have pure ignorance. You don't have pure material ignorance. You don't have pure material passion. You don't have pure material goodness, because they're always found with the others. But we notice every time there's a description of Vaikuntha, pure sattva, pure goodness. no rajas tamas, and pure goodness. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami notes in Kramasandarbha that this has to be fully spiritual. And here also, we note from the second canto verse, Sri Baladeva Bhushan Prabhu has remarked, Nayatra Maya, in the same place where there is no rajas and tamas and where there is only sattva, there is no Maya. In other words, there is no Mayic sattva. Vaishnava theologians explain Vishuddha Sattva in various ways. For example, some describe it as a self-manifesting, conscious, non-material substance. Others describe it as a manifestation of the threefold transcendental energies of the Lord, Hladini, Sandhini, and Samvit, the potencies of pleasure, existence, and consciousness, which are non-different from Him. Okay, that English commentary is a paraphrase of Baladeva Bhushan. That Vishuddha Sattva itself has got three features: Hladini, Sandhini, and Samvit. These are basically the Sat, Chit, and Ananda aspects. Hladini corresponds to the Ananda aspect, Sandhini corresponds to the Sat aspect, Samvit corresponds to the Chit aspect. Hare Ranuvrata Yatra Shyama Haritsita Tat Varnam Upasye Sham Tat Sarupyam Upagata Athava Nitya Siddhatvat Tat Rucham Apyanadita. Where the followers of Lord Hari have complexions that are blue, reddish, green, or white, each of his followers having worshipped a form of the Supreme Lord with one of these complexions, meaning a form of the Supreme Lord in one of those complexions, has attained a form resembling his, or in the case of the Nitya Siddhas, since their complexions are eternal, they have always been like this. Shri Sampad Rupini Murta Yatra Padmamsha Sambhava Manam Sevam Rachayati Vidhabir Vibhuti Bhi Usumakra Shabdena Ritunam Adhipomataha Tena Tasyanudair Grishvam Varshadgair Vrithushtriya Visheshad Giyamanapi Priya Karmaiva Gayati Shatrantena Padena Triptinganta Lakshita Kriya. Personally present there is Goddess Shri, a partial expansion of Padma, embodying all opulence. With her various potent expansions, she honors the Lord by serving him. The word Kusumakara is understood to refer to the leader of the seasons, personified spring. He is present with his followers, summer, the monsoon, and the other seasons, singing of Goddess Shri in a special way. She, however, sings of her beloved's activities. Although her singing is expressed as a present participle, the action of a regular verb is implied. In the verse under discussion, the second clause beginning, Prekashvitaya has no regular verb, only three present participles. Prekashvita, sitting on a swing, she sits on a swing. Yamana, she's being sung about. And Gayati, singing, which means Lakshmi, she does the activity of singing. She does the singing. Each of them can serve as an adjective to describe Goddess Shri, but one of them must serve as the verb of the clause. Srila Rupa here describes Gayati, she sings, as the verb expressing the main action of the clause. That is some Sanskrit grammar. Okay. Okay, fine. So stop this. Hare Krishna. Okay, any questions? If there are any questions, please raise your hands so that I understand. No questions? Prem goes in the Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu, I can hear you.
Dandavat Prabhuji. Prabhuji, page 446, I mean in my text it is page 446, my book. This is about Siddhaloka, also called as Brahmaloka. And it is also said that it is beyond the 8 coverings or something. So, but we see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna very clearly that even if you go to Lord Brahma's planet, you still have to come back. So how can this be beyond the 8 coverings? Beyond the 8 coverings is no longer material world, isn't it?
No, but Siddhaloka here refers to the Brahman effulgence.
No, but is it within the 8 coverings or beyond?
No, it's beyond. Brahman effulgence is beyond.
No, Brahman effulgence, but Siddhaloka is not beyond, no?
No, the Brahman effulgence is also called Siddhaloka.
Oh, is it like that?
Yeah.
But then they have given the name Brahmaloka also, no? And Brahmaloka is Brahma's planet.
No, wait, I'll show you. Just give me a minute. Let me first of all share my screen. This is 2.5.39 Srimad Bhagavatam. Vivayam Janalokosya Tapalokas Kanadvaya Murthavir Satyalokastu Brahmalokas Sanatana. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. So the Janaloka planetary system reaches up to his neck. The Tapoloka planetary system begins from his breast. The Satyaloka planetary system is by his head, but the spiritual planets are eternal. Brahmaloka. Now this Brahmaloka cannot be the Satyaloka of Brahma. It has to be something else, because Satyaloka is definitely not eternal at all. So you cannot take this Brahmaloka to be an adjective of this Satyaloka. There's also the word tu here, but it signifies a contrast. It is different. So you have Satyaloka and you have something else. Many times in these pages we have discussed the spiritual planets situated beyond the material sky, and the description is corroborated in this verse. The word Sanatana is significant. This very idea of eternity is expressed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.20, where it is said that beyond the material creation in the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal, where it is said that beyond the material creation is the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal. Sometimes Satyaloka, the planet in which Brahma resides, is also called Brahmaloka. But the Brahmaloka mentioned here is not the same as the Satyaloka planetary system. This Brahmaloka is eternal, whereas the Satyaloka planetary system is not eternal. And to distinguish between the two, the adjective Sanatana has been used in this verse.
Then the Siddhaloka is a spiritual planet, huh? The
Siddhaloka, which the supercilious merge into, that is certainly fully spiritual, and as such it has to be beyond all the Brahmandas.
But then there is a Siddhaloka in the material world also, isn't it? Because
Yeah, that's different. That's different. That is a species of celestial beings called Siddhas.
correct. Okay.
Anything else? If anyone has any further question, you can ask me now. Otherwise, if some question comes up, you can ask in the Telegram group. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.